What's up, y'all? I'm Will here with Schedulefly, and this is the Restaurant Owners Uncorked podcast, one of the highest rated hospitality podcasts in the world, brought to you by us at Schedulefly. We provide a very simple web-based restaurant employee scheduling software backed by legendary customer service. If you're on pencil and paper or Excel, or you're on some software with tons of bells and whistles and features you don't need or use, Schedulefly is the perfect place for you. Easy to use, point, click, and go, and we'll take great care of you. Schedulefly.com, free trial, check it out. Also, this podcast is brought to you by our sponsors, Pop Menu and The Giving Kitchen and Kickfin, and you're going to hear about them in just a minute. First of all, let's talk about today's guest. Hey, what's up, y'all? This is fun because this was the first episode recorded here in studio, in Everybody Studios here in Charlotte, where we have started recording. So this is Brian Helfrich, and Brian owns Summit Coffee, which is kind of cool personally because Brian and I both went to Davidson College, which is here north of Charlotte. If you've heard of Davidson, it's probably because Steph Curry went there. But we got connected. He's a great dude. He was the third owner of Summit Coffee, which was a single location that was in town for a long time. He's owned it for about 10 years now, and they've gone from that location to, I believe it's a dozen locations now, some corporate-owned, some franchise. We talked about their growth strategy. We talked about all kinds of stuff, business philosophy, and what they're doing with Summit, with creating positive moments for their customers and how they compete, and where they kind of sit in this world of between Starbucks and then, sort of local, really artisanal coffee shops, the brand that they're trying to build, the experience they're building for their customers and for their team. Super, super sharp dude. Has built a really phenomenal business and is just going to keep building this thing slowly but surely. Owns the business himself, and is just really a great personality. And we're super thrilled to have had somebody come in here and do this in person. So y'all will love this episode. Whether you love coffee or not, this is a cool story about taking a brand or taking a small company and turning it into a really unique and powerful and growing brand. Thank y'all for listening. Thank you for watching. More episodes coming soon. Give your team the gift of Pop Menu AI Answering, a simple solution for phones ringing off the hook. AI Answering handles calls 24/7, 365 days a year, so your staff can focus on in-person guests. Customize your greetings and responses, answer common questions, promote specials and events, and send follow-up links to ordering and reservations. AI Answering handles it all while escalating more complex conversations back to your team. Never miss another tasty revenue opportunity. Pop Menu, the marketing technology platform designed to make growing your restaurant easy. Discover more AI restaurant tools that turn your to-do list into an already done list by requesting a demo today. For a limited time, get $100 off your first month, plus lock in one unchanging monthly rate at popmenu.com. Go now to get $100 off your first month at popmenu.com. Be sure to tell them that Will from Restaurant Owners Uncorked podcast and Schedulefly sent you. Y'all, this is a great business. I just told you what they like me to say. I will say that we have a lot of mutual customers at Schedulefly with Pop Menu. They all agree. Great product, great customer service, great results. Check them out, popmenu.com. This episode is also brought to you by The Giving Kitchen. Giving Kitchen provides emergency assistance for food service workers through financial support and a network of community resources. Since its inception in 2013, Giving Kitchen has served over 15,000 food service workers and awarded over $10.5 million to food service workers in crisis. If you or someone you know is a food service worker in crisis, please ask for help. thegivingkitchen.org, and again, that's thegivingkitchen.org. Y'all, this is a phenomenal organization. Jen, the founder, has been on this podcast. Jen Heidinger Kendrick, check out that episode to hear their full story. But if you know somebody or you need help, go to thegivingkitchen.org. Incredible, incredible organization and very responsive and has a wonderful mission. Check them out. Well, Brian, I'm super, super thrilled to do this episode today. We have a connection through Davidson College. We get to do this is our first one in person here in the studio.
That's awesome.
So this is cool. We got this
Lucky me.
cool couch to hang out on. You're drinking your Summit coffee, which is your business. So just do me a favor. Just introduce yourself real quick.
Awesome. Brian Helfrich. I am the CEO and owner of Summit Coffee, coffee business that I bought in 2012 and have grown from a cafe in Davidson, a small college town where we both went. And now we have a dozen cafes in the Southeast and 8 more coming next year. And we also are a national coffee roaster and distributor. And live in Davidson, about a quarter mile from our flagship cafe with my wife and a couple kids and a couple dogs, and pretty stereotypical suburban family.
Dude, that's awesome. A quarter mile. So you can just literally walk over to...
I literally do walk every day. There's a triangle. It's like my house to the elementary school. I walk my kids to school at 8 o'clock, and then our corporate office is a half mile from there. And then I walk back home, and
bro, you got it figured out, man.
It is. It's a nice dichotomy. Like, we really like to travel and see the world too, but it's like I'm either in my triangle or I'm out exploring something.
Right. You're in your very tiny little bubble, or
Yes.
you're out. That's a nice mix.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thanks.
So you bought and you told me before we started recording, you're the third owner.
I am.
When was the first Summit? Well, actually, let's take a step back.
Okay.
So you and I, because, people that are listening to this, probably most of them don't know about Davidson College, unless maybe it's through Steph Curry.
Yep.
But Davidson is this really Norman Rockwell looking small town with a little downtown, and the college is right there across the street. And when I graduated in 96, I mean, there was a couple of, things there. There's the soda shop, which has been there forever. There was the Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah, but it couldn't be more stereotypical.
There definitely wasn't a coffee shop. There was really not many places for us to go. And now, fast forward to today, it's a lot of hustle and bustle, a lot of great retail. There's Toast, famous Toastery started there. You got Summit Coffee there. So there's a lot's happened in the town. Somebody started Summit Coffee, and were you a student there when it was?
No, it even predates me. So it started in 1998.
It was right after I left.
25 years ago. We just celebrated 25 years.
Congrats.
Started by a man, Craig Blaney, who, after 4 years of doing that, and not much had happened, was ready to sort of give up on it. My older brother, Tim, who was also a Davidson graduate, sort of swept in and took over the business and ran it by himself for the next 8 or 9 years. And then at some point wanted to see what Summit had in store and didn't know how to quite bring it to life himself. So he recruited me. So I came in for a year to work alongside him before ultimately buying the business and taking it over and, taking it into its sort of second or third phase of life.
What year did you buy it?
2012.
2012. Okay. Okay. Got it.
So for the first 15 years, Summit was just one cafe in Davidson.
Yeah.
And that was the total book of what we did.
It's a cool cafe. I've been to it. It's a cool place. Okay. So what were you doing prior to that?
I was a sports journalist.
Okay.
I graduated from Davidson with a degree in creative writing. Since I was a kid, wanted to do something in sports. So pursued that. I was a journalist and an editor for Sports Business Journal, a national sports business magazine. And then had a bit of a sliding doors moment in 2011 when I was a finalist to go work for ESPN. They wanted me to move out to Los Angeles and be an editor for a project that Bill Simmons was running.
Oh, yeah.
And ultimately didn't get the editor job, and then had a decision between being a columnist for ESPN or staying where I was or doing something totally different. And simultaneously, my brother was like, I want to do something with Summit. And I was like, well, I was just married, had no kids. I was in my mid-20s and decided to go to work for myself for a little bit. And here we are.
So Bill Simmons, that was when he was like the sports guy.
Yeah, he was just starting Grantland for ESPN.
Yeah, I remember Grantland.
Right. So I was one of the finalists to be the lead editor of Grantland. And then,
so
sliding doors moment in my life, and ultimately took me from journalism to entrepreneurship, which was probably a good bet.
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, that would have been cool probably, but it would have been probably super exhausting, hard to raise a family. Now
Oh,
you're
yeah.
you know, like, your setup you got now is
It's yes.
pretty good when you got young kids. Okay, so, well, now this is awesome. So did now were you were you like a coffee guy?
No.
Okay.
I didn't drink coffee until midway through college. But again, my older brother owned the coffee shop in town when I was a college student. So I had a little bit of an in and worked there as a barista. And actually met my wife there while I was a barista. So it's like a total full circle moment. So when we were both students, we met at the coffee shop and then went away to Charlotte and to do other things with our careers and then came back and bought the shop. And now it's the business that I run.
When you bought it, did you like what was the goal at the time?
I really like the Summit Coffee brand. I like our mountain logo. I like sort of it felt like a blank canvas of possibility for me, which as a creative, it wasn't writing, but
Yeah.
it was sort of had endless possibilities. And I thought at that point in my career, I had a lot of energy to put into something.
Yeah.
I work hard. I really like to ideate, create, bring things to life. And so I really had no experience with running a business or coffee other than working as a barista, for a few months and
Right.
being a consumer. But at that point, it felt more about getting to create a brand, and that was the appeal to me.
And so you've got this place, how long did it take from when you went from that location to deciding, okay, we're gonna start to grow this thing, and where did you open next?
It was pretty quick. I mean, when I came on board, it was with the intent to grow. I don't. I also don't like to. I'm not complacent, and I don't like to keep things status quo. So
Yeah.
the only reason I went into Summit in the first place was with the intent to see what it could do. So we opened a second store just on the campus of Davidson College. And then we ultimately opened our roasting business, which was a whole segment of our business. That was our next big shift.
Okay.
And so that happened in 2015 and started figuring out how to import coffee and roast it and distribute it and find wholesale partners near and wide. And, have grown through that in a lot of ways too.
Well, tell me, okay, so tell me about importing coffee and
Yeah,
finding. I mean, coffee to me is such a fascinating. First of all, I drink a lot of coffee.
that's good.
I drink
You
three.
and a lot of people.
What?
You
Yeah,
and a lot of other people.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's 3 or 4 cups a day, black.
Yep.
I have recently. I've started. I've always kind of been one where I got up and like I'm making that coffee
Yeah.
before I really want to talk to anybody or whatever. The last 3 or 4 months, I make myself drink a bunch of water when I wake up,
Okay.
and I make myself wait like an hour
Okay.
to
Why
kind
is that?
to let my body wake up naturally
Yeah.
versus needing this. And what's happened is, um, I don't get the lull
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
afternoon anymore, which is kind of cool. So, and I like feeling like, okay, I used to feel like, I would go on, I remember going on a mountain biking
Yeah.
trip with my buddies, and we woke. I'm like, who's got the coffee? Where's the coffee? Where's the
Yeah.
coffee? I need the coffee. Where's the coffee?
Well, it's a drug. I mean, it
Yeah,
definitely.
you don't want to be like
Yeah.
it's nice to know that now if I were to wake up and then wait an hour and then wait another and wait another, like I'm gonna feel that. I'm
Sure.
gonna have a headache
Sure.
and whatever, but it's just nice to know that like I can just kind of just chill
Yeah,
for just a little bit.
I'm not a first minute coffee drinker. On the weekdays it's 2 hours after I've been awake where I have my first cup of coffee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same reason or just
I wake up and I work out
yeah.
is sort of my routine. I'm a Monday through Friday, I'm a pretty simple routine in the morning. I wake up, work out, take care of the dogs, get the kids up, feed them breakfast, and then have coffee.
What kind of working out do you do?
I do a lot of running.
You do
Yeah.
distance.
Yeah. It's sort of my mental and physical happy place.
Uh-huh.
But yeah,
Well, you get up in the morning, you go for a run first thing, you're gonna feel pretty good when you get back.
yeah, and I'm an
You're earning
achiever by
some
nature, right? And so it's
Yeah.
like I always feel like I'm therefore have accomplished something and am in control of my day, and those two things are really important to my mental health and productivity. I had a stress fracture in my leg this fall and couldn't run for 5 weeks, and that was a good test of like, okay, what do you replace
Mm,
this with? Because you can't just skip that part of your day.
stress factor from too much running or
Yeah.
yeah. What'd you do?
Uh,
How did you replace it? Like, what did you?
I did a lot of other work, and I did a lot of weightlifting and a lot of like low impact stuff. But it was, if to me, it realized it was more the that was the mental impact of the morning exercise that was really integral to my daily success. It's like having that hour and a half by myself before any of my colleagues start to send me
Mm-hmm.
messages, before my kids are awake, before anything else happens. I have sort of an opportunity to get control of the day.
You like a 5 a.m. guy?
4:30.
4:30.
Yeah.
You're like Jocko. You know Jocko?
No.
Jocko Willink. He's a former Navy SEAL.
Okay.
He's got a good podcast, and he posts a picture of his watch every day on his
Yeah.
Instagram. What time he
Yeah.
wakes up? It's always like 4:29,
Yeah.
4:32, somewhere around there.
It's funny. I've always been an early riser.
Yeah.
When I was in journalism, I was in the office by 5 every day.
Oh, right.
But it was actually during the pandemic where I started the 4:30 a.m. wake up to workout. It was like, when everything was a little bit scattered and unclear, I just needed some routine to stabilize myself in, and so that I started that in 2020 and sort of have kept it going.
Yeah, you got to go to bed early for that.
10:30. I'm a 6 hours
6
of sleep
hours.
guy.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
which I understand is probably not optimal.
Maybe, but
People
I
are
mean,
different,
it's
yeah.
working for you.
Yeah.
It would not work for me.
No.
No, I'd crash and burn hard on that.
Yeah.
I need 8.
Yeah.
I'm an 8-hour guy. Okay, so but coffee's always been. I love it. I don't know. I don't understand it real well. What's always been fascinating to me is, I mean, you've got these beans, this
Yep.
thing that's coming from all these countries around the world that have all these different weather patterns and
Yep.
like. So in my mind, I'm like, how do you get a consistent product when you've got so much variability in climate and transport and
Totally.
different farms, and how do you?
It's a great question. Coffee is an agricultural product. To your point, it grows in different countries all over the world. It grows inside of a cherry on a tree, the coffee seeds. And so just like with other agricultural products, whether it's apples, think about apples in the US, like there's a seasonality to it. The different types of apples mature at different times of the year. In
Yeah.
Washington, apples taste different and mature at different times than North Carolina apples. Coffee is almost identical to that. Where they can grow is different, obviously. It's between sort of the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. If you look at the globe, it's, right around the middle of the world. And there's seasonality to it. And so coffee is the second most commonly traded commodity in the world behind oil. And so it's a gigantic international business. And our approach at Summit is our core coffee, we make blends. There's like single origin coffee and there's blends. Blends are exclusive to Summit, but the point is we have a coffee called Basecamp, which is our house blend. It's our best-selling coffee. It doesn't really matter to the customer what goes in there as long as it tastes the same. And so our job is to source coffee from all over the world and roast it in a way that makes Basecamp taste like Basecamp. So sometimes Basecamp will have coffee from Honduras. Sometimes it'll have coffee from Guatemala, and it depends on seasonality and which countries are having good harvests or bad harvests, or and so monitoring the global supply chain is sort of one of the core parts of that. You need both the economics and the quality control of that.
There was this guy I got years ago. I got overly obsessed with this, and I realized I was like, man, I can't. This is either a scam or it's just I'm not going to worry about it. But there's this guy. Well, you probably know about this dude, Dave Asprey. He does the Bulletproof Coffee, and he was like, I learned a lot from him about nutrition for a while, and he was talking about like when we get into coffee, he was talking about how like basically all coffee has mycotoxins, and mycotoxins are going to cause all these health problems. But I've got this coffee. It's from this special secret shade grown region up, and I was like, and I used to. I mean, I literally like before he had that brand, I was doing the MCT oil and unsalted butter and
Sure.
And I'm like, this is cool, and I get energy from it and all this stuff. And then it was like, well, the only place you should really buy coffee is from, and I get it. Like, I get it. I get that's what a lot of those, that's that kind of that path. But I always have wondered about that because I felt like there's probably some efficacy to what he's talking about, but like trying to, ensure that a product that's coming from so far and just the consistency of the quality of whether these things have any mold or mycotoxins or whatever in it. How do you do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a lot of crap coffee grown and sold in the world.
Yeah.
and the commodity market is the main channel in which that happens. And there are a couple ways. One is the partners that we source from. Um, both our import partners, our export partners at origin. We buy the same coffees almost year in, year out for a reliability standpoint. We visit our farms. 92% of the coffee that we bought in 2023 were relationship coffees, as we call it. So people we've met, people we've worked with. So that is important. The second is, we are a certified organic coffee roastery. There's only, I think, 3 or 4 of us in North Carolina, but
Okay.
there are certain things that are governed by the USDA, and in terms of, these other aspects of what's in your coffee and traceability and ensuring a certain amount of cleanliness in the product, that is something that was important to us too. And so, we achieve that really early on in our process and have to uphold some pretty rigorous standards to keep that certification rolling.
Tell me about Summit. What
Yeah.
does Summit mean to you?
The name?
Yeah, just the name, the logo. You've got
Yeah.
a mountain, like you've got base camp, so
Mhm.
you've got this attachment to.
Yeah, I mean, it started as so Craig Blaney, the founder, was a rock climber. So it
Okay.
was literally a
Okay.
mountaineering theme coffee shop. I am not a rock climber. I do a lot of outdoor sports, and but it's taken on legs to. We have this phrase that we have trademarked called "Find Your Summit." It's this idea
I
of
like that.
encouraging people to figure out what their pursuit is, and whether it's short term, long term, whether it's actually climbing a mountain, whether it's trying to achieve something in your day to day life, how you approach work, how you approach parenting, whatever it may be, is trying to encourage people to find their summit. And for us, our core purpose as a company, is we've sort of uncovered and lived into, is to create moments of joy. Like we all talked about, what are we trying to do on a daily basis? Why do we come to work? Why are we investing our careers in Summit? And we want to use coffee in our cafes as a vehicle to create moments of joy for people. So whether that's in the coffee shop, whether that's when they wake up and have their coffee and that, quality product in that moment, but also just like coffee is such a routine and a fuel for people to do what they do. I think ultimately people are going to drink coffee. We're fortunate that it's a pretty recession-proof business. How you sell coffee, you need to adjust that based on the economy and what people are changing in their habits. But people drink coffee, and we're not in the business of. Some people are. We have chosen not to be in the business of telling people how to drink coffee. We want to understand what our customers want and give them the best version of that possible. And sort of be the fuel for whatever it is they use coffee for.
What do you mean you're not in the business of telling people how to drink coffee? Then some people do. You're not.
There's some specialty coffee, which is what we categorize ourselves as.
You're approachable.
Yeah, I think it's gone through this evolution, and there's a certain highbrow nature to specialty coffee that's like, you have to buy coffee that's this expensive or from this region.
Yeah.
The reality is we're in the business of providing coffee to people who drink it. And so we started this in the last couple of years by anytime we wanted to do something, it was like, okay, but which of our customers are actually going to buy this? It's like, we have this awesome coffee we can be excited about, and there's a certain point where we can convey that excitement to our customers. But people have habits related to coffee. Most 80% of our customers put some sort of milk with their coffee. And so we don't want to be a place that's like, this coffee has to be consumed via pour over. It has to be consumed only black. It's like, it's just not what our viable business model borne out. We understand that there's some companies that can do this, but trying to grow at the scale that we're growing and, trying to sell 300, 400, 500 cups of coffee a day at each of our cafes, you don't have to. We have decided it's important for us to zero in on, finding that sweet spot of quality product, but also approachability for our customers.
Yeah. Yeah.
We look at the beer industry a lot as a parallel.
Okay.
We don't want to be a micro craft brewery that like is really great at one type of beer, makes really expensive beer, harder to get. We also don't want to, we're not Budweiser.
Right.
But there's a sweet spot in the middle where you can be sort of a craft beer company that also makes beer that everyday people want to drink every day. We're trying to be an everyday coffee company, not a luxury.
Okay. Well, it's an interesting space. because you've got Starbucks
Mm-hmm.
on one end, and then you've got the local,
Yeah.
like, this is our shop. Like Summit
Yeah.
started. Like, we got this one location,
Totally.
and this is what we do. And there's not many. I know there's others, and I can't even think of any off the top of my head. Maybe Caribou. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's others that have tried to kind of scale up, but not at the level of Starbucks. You've had how many locations now?
12
And they're
that are
all
open.
right around the greater Charlotte area, or are you?
Charlotte, Asheville, and Atlanta.
Oh, you're in Atlanta too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we're opening 8 more next year.
All company owned, or are you franchising?
Both.
Both.
Yep.
Why both?
We want to stay in operations.
Okay.
And so the Davidson stores, they're basically our local cafe. We live there. We're in it every day. We expanded into franchising for a couple of reasons. One is we just access to scale. We don't have the capital to open a dozen stores ourselves, but we wanted to expand the Summit brand. Now we are pivoting back a little bit toward more company-owned stores. Just as Summit has been able to grow, we've added, really thoughtful team members. We have just a much better idea of what we're doing. And so feel like we can open corporate stores responsibly in a way that we probably couldn't have 4 years ago outside of our core area.
How many are corporate owned now?
Right now, 2 of the 12 are, and 5 of the 8 opening next year will be.
2 of the 12 and 5 of the 8. Okay, gotcha.
So we'll have 20 stores by the end of next year, 7 that'll be owned by corporate.
And do you think you'll probably have more of the corporate owned that are within driving distance or whatever, but as you start growing out into...
We're going to open pockets of stores. And that's always been our philosophy with franchising too, is so you can build a brand. So in
that
Charlotte,
area.
We have a lot of stores in Asheville. Like Charleston, we're going to open 3 corporate stores. So we can
Gotcha.
have an area manager, but also use our resources to generally increase the brand awareness of Summit in Charleston as a whole, and then create different avenues. So you and I talked about offline is, our job is to create brand awareness and it's sort of a desire for customers to want to interact with Summit, then give them opportunities to interact with Summit, whether it's going to our cafes, drinking coffee in their house, finding it at the grocery stores, going to a third-party place that also serves our coffee, and then making sure we deliver on that experience is the third part. And that we think of that as our sort of flywheel that keeps this thing going. It's like, you make customers want Summit, you give them a way to find it, and then you nail that experience, and that's just gonna keep it spinning.
I want to talk about the experience in a minute. How do you figure out what markets you're going to go into?
It's a good question. We want to be in markets right now that are nearby, but that feel like they're penetrable, that don't have a brand that is so dominant over the area that we are not in the business of putting other small coffee shops out of business. We're much happier to compete with the Starbucks than we are with, where Summit was 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be locally loved. And in Charlotte, we feel like we have that, but really have that in pockets around our cafes.
Yeah.
And so site selection is incredibly important, both for its success, but also to be able to get people to resonate with your brand.
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic because we want, and you want, I think, local, one location, and 35, 40-year-old coffee shops that are never going to do anything but just have that shop. Like, you want those. And it's probably some benefit to have Starbucks in the area as well. I think that, it's been interesting watching what's happened with Starbucks as and this is a post you wrote that really got me interested. I was like, I've got to talk to this guy, because you were like, hey man, like, Starbucks deserves a lot of credit for making the idea of going to the coffee shop a thing. Because I never went to a coffee shop ever until Starbucks came around. I mean, there weren't as many. They were there, but I just didn't do that. And then they made like, oh, you go to this coffee shop and you sit and you hang or whatever. But I mean, that thing's a freaking machine now. I think they're doing like mostly drive-throughs, and
they're opening one. They're opening one every 9 hours in 2024.
one every 9 hours
Yeah.
in 2024. Yeah. So I'm not like personally. I just I mean my company, my Schedule Fly, we serve independent businesses and small, you know, small companies. I think we may have a couple of franchise Starbucks, but personally, I like the smaller
Yeah.
feel, and I like what you're talking about, which is going into pockets and not and kind of being somewhere in the middle
Mm-hmm.
of that extreme and then this extreme. And
Yep.
we need both, dude. I'll tell you this thing. It's been a personal. Like, it drives me crazy to the point that I will take pictures of this and send it to my friends. And I don't judge, but I can't understand when people sit in a line 25 cars deep on a 70-degree beautiful day, and there's 25 cars in the Starbucks
Yep.
line when you literally could pull up and just walk in and
Yep.
get what you want. I don't understand that. It's
Yeah, but a lot of people do it.
a lot of people do
I
it.
don't do it, but a lot of people do it.
A lot of people do it. But I mean, I'm sure. Do you have like the challenge? I think right now with Starbucks, Dunkin', and all this kind of stuff, they're great, wonderful. Give people what they want. God, the number of calories and stuff that these aren't really coffee drinks anymore.
They're
It's like a
desserts.
dessert
Yeah,
drink.
totally.
I mean, we go like, I see what my kids get. I'm like, you just got a milkshake, basically. Like, it's like a hot milkshake.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so that's been quite interesting to see coffee move into that direction.
Yeah, and I think Starbucks is more of a beverage company than a coffee company at this point.
That's
and I think they've done that to great success, right? I mean, in addition to their coffee beverages, they also have, to your point, they have a pretty expansive kids menu. They have these refresher drinks. Their menu is 3 times as long as ours. But as a result, they're pretty busy from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. because they hit all sorts of day parts, and it's a different beast, right? I mean, it is. I think of Starbucks in a similar way that I think of Nike to the shoe market, which is like they play in, they're able to play in all the spaces. So, in like the running shoe market, Nike plays in the super competitive, $200 shoe market. They also play in like the $30 I want to buy shoes to mow my grass market, and but they're big enough to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Starbucks does that in coffee. If we try to replicate Starbucks, we are just going to be inside of their competitive circle, and we're never going to get any differentiation, right? And so they're big enough, just like Nike is, to play in every territory and play well in every territory. We need to choose one path.
Yeah.
And that for us is that intersection of quality and, approachability is the intersection. They're basically the customer experience, which we're tapping into a customer who wants something different than what they're getting out of a Starbucks drive-thru. And we also understand there are probably a lot of our customers that find times to go to a Starbucks drive-thru too. Like, we're not trying to necessarily avoid those customers.
Yeah.
Those are people who have shown a willingness to spend $6, $7, $8 on a coffee drink, and we'd be foolish if we didn't think that there was a possibility to, win some of that market share from those customers.
Sure. Well, let's talk about the experience, because that's a big part of this. I find that there's that experience, which is just, I mean, it used to be one thing, and now it just, when I have gone there, it's just such a fast, efficient, I mean, you may as well almost just have, where they probably get where you have robots.
Oh, everything's automated.
I mean, like there's just there might be one person there who's just like managing the equipment. And then you've got, and this is where I think I'm in this camp where sometimes you can be a little uncomfortable, because I just drink black coffee.
Yep.
I don't get into it's cool, but I'm not some highfalutin aficionado who's, I want my pour over, and I like, that's fine. There's nothing wrong. That's great.
Yep.
But I think there's a lot of consumers like me where I feel sometimes in the local single location coffee shops, I feel a little uncomfortable, because it's like there's some barista who cares more about the product than the
100%
guest. And I think that the interaction, to me, I feel like hospitality ultimately, which is what you do, when really dialed in, it's for most people, it is a people-centric thing. I mean, the product...
That's how you make people feel.
That's what they remember, right? They remember how you make them feel. I think it was at Maya Angelou that said that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
people remember how you make them feel. And so if I feel like I'm a dumbass because I don't understand all this stuff at this place, it's like real artsy and real over the top and like, just like super artistic barista that kind of scoffs at me because I just
That's
want a cup of
exactly
black
right.
coffee. And then I don't feel, I mean, I don't get any, like, it's fine. Like if I'm in a hurry in an airport and there's a Starbucks there, and I mean, even there's a freaking crazy line.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'll go to Einstein's. I'm like, well, okay, there's no line here and they got coffee. But I get what they do, and their branding is amazing, and the siren calls you in, and I get all that stuff, but I don't like that. I like what you're
Yeah.
creating. That type of, where you've but that's hard. The reason I'm setting all this up is it's really hard, and I feel like it's gotten even harder these days to find people who get that and
Yep.
can do that and do that consistently and get, as I was sharing with my daughter this summer, she's, came in from her freshman year of college. She's a hostess at a restaurant.
Mhm.
I'm like, yes, people come in bad moods. Yes, people come in and they're rude. But you know what you can do? You can smile at every single. You can control this. You can smile at every one of them. You can thank them for coming in. You can be kind, and you can thank them as they leave and look them in the eyes
Yeah.
and say, "We're really glad you came in here." And I promise you, you will make a difference in their day. And maybe they'll even pass that, pay that forward somewhere else. But like just doing that will make you feel good. You'll make other people feel good, and that's builds.
Yeah. And I mean, it's creating moments of joy, which again, I said was our company purpose. It is our differentiator. We think among coffee shops, both big and small, is that there are going to be people that want an awesome coffee experience, and there are going to be people that, not to say they don't care about what the coffee tastes like, but they want coffee or they're having a meeting and they are going to get something. It is the environment that you curate that
Yes.
is what is impactful. In our business, we're opening our cafes in neighborhoods, not in more urban locations, because customer loyalty and brand affinity are really important to our long-term success.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, you need to build customer loyalty. You need to earn their business,
Yeah.
long-term business. And that happens not because, oh man, this coffee's great. The coffee needs to be good for sure. But our differentiator can't be on product, because you will never maintain that competitive advantage forever.
Yeah.
If your whole thing is we're going to have a better coffee than the next person, somebody's going to come along with a better coffee. Someone's going to come with a better coffee. But the ability to create, and oftentimes it's a 35-second interaction, or if someone's in line for 6 minutes, it's the energy of the one-on-one interaction. It's also the energy of the environment, right? It's the music you're playing, it's the lighting, it's the plants, because if you're waiting in line for 5 minutes, the majority of your experience is going to be getting other sensory experiences. And if people are happy, if people are talking, if people are buzzing, that creates a bit of like it's this little dopamine hit that's like,
Yes.
it's like, oh gosh, like I'm glad that I stopped there.
Yep.
And you can ruin that really quickly. If you go to a coffee shop and 2 times in a week, you have a barista who didn't smile at you and tried to usher you out the door as quickly as possible, or had a weird experience. Next time it comes to you're struggling to find a parking spot, or there's a line out the door, you're going to very easily give up on that. You're like, well, it's not worth me investing in this decision because it's not going to make me feel any certain way. So it's hard to, but I mean, that's incredibly hard to do at scale, right?
It's very hard to do at scale. You get that, I get that. If you're behind that, and you see a long line and people are like, okay, they're probably getting frustrated because it's a long line. You're going to stop with each one, take a breath. You're going to look them in the eye. How you doing today?
Yeah.
And you're going to be present. And that's going to wash away any moments of like frustration or whatever that they waited in a line, and now everything is good and they're happy and they're going to get what they.
It's been an eternal struggle for us for a couple of years, and I think we now have it. We're pretty comfortable with who we are, but there's a certain keeping up with the Joneses thing in specialty coffee that I referred to earlier, where you see what companies are doing around you, and especially, even the baristas or our younger people that come to work for us are paying attention to what coffee shops in Charlotte are doing, or we're going to global specialty coffee conferences, and you can drink the Kool-Aid and feel like we need to play in all of those spheres, but it's pretty impossible to keep up with. And there's certain decisions you make. If you're in the business of serving customers, of creating a hospitable experience, you need to make certain choices.
Mm-hmm.
And we've made a couple choices that were controversial internally. Like we switched espresso machines. We had like the highest quality manual espresso machine, La Marzocco from Italy that, a lot of these coffee shops have. The reality is when you're serving 500, 600, 700 people a day, which is what our busiest cafes do, it takes a really long time to make lattes for that many people in a long line. Our average transaction time was near 6 minutes. And then that doesn't include the time people were waiting in line. And so we made the decision to switch to a semi-automatic espresso machine where we're still crafting the drinks, but it moves faster. The product quality is consistent every single time. And our average transaction time went down to 2 minutes and 20 seconds. So we cut it by almost 200%.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was like, because the reality, the customer is getting the same quality cup of coffee, maybe even better. Our baristas are less taxed by the labor of making all these lattes, of grinding the coffee, of tamping the coffee, of steaming the milk. So they're more hospitable. And the customer's getting in and out and saving 4 minutes. And that whole experience, I was able to see the big picture. There was a lot of pushback internally on that. But it's ultimately led to our customer experience. Our customer feedback is at the highest point it's ever been. And ultimately, I think you just have to decide what your customers care about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. So you did that across all of your...
No. Half of our cafes have them.
Okay.
And so there's a pretty clear delineation in terms of, customer experience can be great regardless, but especially as you get to higher volume cafes, it's really hard to maintain that environment in like an assembly line space where requires 18 steps to make a latte versus 2 or 3.
Have you had any locations that have missed?
Well, sort of. I say sort of because we opened one in Chapel Hill during the pandemic on we signed a 1-year lease. It was when a bunch of businesses went out. Somebody we had already had leases with in other spaces had a space in Chapel Hill, and they were like, "We'll give this to you for pennies on the dollar. Let's do it for a year. See if you guys like it. If you like it, we'll renew it for a longer term contract." And for us, it was a fairly low cost experience to figure out how we expanded into a new market. And ultimately, even in a healthy economy and with good business, I don't think the location was right. So we learned a lot about site selection. So we didn't necessarily fail because we went in for a year and decided not to renew after that. So that's the store that opened and closed. But
where was it?
It was on Franklin Street.
Okay. It was on Franklin Street.
Yeah. One thing we learned during that is that parking is really important to our coffee business. If we're talking about, a minimum of 200 customers a day, a lot of those people are coming to you in their car.
Yep.
And if they have a hard time parking nearby, they're not going to come to your shop for coffee anymore. There's some places of ours that are more walkable, but that one, it was a part of Franklin Street where people weren't really walking. It was near a Target. It was near a realty office. It wasn't a hit. And so we also knew that it wasn't going to be long-term. We knew it was viable, but it wasn't going to be great. And so we,
Parking on Franklin Street's not easy.
No.
Yeah. No.
And as you know, the strategy, it's almost as important to figure out what to say no to and what opportunities to pass on as it is to decide what opportunities to say yes to. Yeah. And is running a small business, you only get a couple big swings and misses before some people only get one, right? You take a big swing, you missed, you're out of business. We're fortunate to have a big enough business now where we can take little swings, and if you miss, you can rebound, but you can't do that too many times before it starts sabotaging things. And so we need to decide pretty quickly, if something's worth pursuing and if it's not, and we've already made that decision, to sort of fail fast.
Yeah, and that's all right. As long as you're self-aware, learn from it, figure it out, and don't make that mistake again. Then
that's right.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, y'all. It is time for a little mid-episode break. We're going to talk about Kickfin. Thousands of restaurants, bars, and breweries use Kickfin to tip out their employees instantly. No cash required. With Kickfin, tips go directly to your employees' bank of choice the second their shift ends. It's a really simple solution to a really big problem because If you're still paying out credit card tips in cash, it's costing you. Time-consuming bank runs and cash counting take managers away from work that matters. Cash is hard to track, which leads to accounting headaches, and it creates the perfect opportunity for theft, human error, and compliance issues. Bottom line, there's never been an instant secure way to pay out tips until KickFin. It's an easy-to-use software that sends real-time, cashless tip payouts straight to your employees' bank accounts, 24/7, 365. KickFin gives managers hours back in their day, makes reporting a breeze, and protects your business from risk. Most importantly, employees love it. Restaurants can have KickFin up and running overnight. Employees can enroll in seconds. No hardware, no contracts, no setup fees. Visit kickfin.com for a personalized demo. See how restaurants across the country are digitizing tips with KickFin. All right, that's what they asked me to say, so I say it, and it tells the story very well, but I like to add this in. We referred a customer that we know and love very well, Sup Dogs, to KickFin. Sup Dogs has been a customer for a super long time. Trust them very much with their opinion on these types of tools. They started using KickFin. I asked Brett, the owner, recently how it's going. He said, KickFin is perfect. It's going great. Exactly what we were hoping for. So there you go. Kickfin.com, y'all. Check them out.
So you're more residential typically.
Mhm.
I mean, so you would go, I mean, I guess where you are around here makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
How do you have somebody on your team that does site selection, or do you?
So in each market, we work with a real estate broker. I lead site selection on our team. It's one of the few things that, as the CEO, I still am directly responsible for because I feel like it's that important to success.
Yeah.
We have people that do our design and our build out and all that stuff. But when it comes to yes or no, will a summit open this space? I make sure that passes through my eyes before we give it a sign off.
Do you know a guy in Charlotte here named Trey Morgan,
Mm-mm.
Morgan Companies? I should connect you. He's a good friend of mine. He does
Okay.
real estate development all throughout the state. He does a lot of like Publix centers.
Yeah.
Freaking sharp dude, knows what he's doing. He's helped some other customers. He's actually working with well, you've been up in Asheville, so you know Chaipani.
Mm-hmm.
So Marwan Irani owns Chaipani, and those guys are Trey's now helping him because he's got his smaller concept Bodiwala that he's trying to really scale up, and Trey's helping him around the Southeast. Anyway, Asheville's been it's been a weird year up there.
Yes.
It's been a tough year up there. I mean, I think if you're long Asheville, you're good, but there's been a lot of tough decisions.
We have
in
two Asheville cafes, one that is thriving and one that is not struggling, but is like steady.
Do you have one downtown?
Correct. And the downtown one is the one that's like, it's seasonal. It is more tourist driven. And so again, for a brand that's built largely on regulars and loyalty and long-term customer affinity, being in a space that is dominated by tourists is pretty hard. We have one out in the River Arts District, and we've been there for 6.5 years, and that store continues to grow and thrive. And and so those are two examples of where we are thriving in Nashville and where we're not.
Well, I mean, because downtown is just so very dependent on tourism. I think tourism was down like 25% last year or something crazy.
And there's a ton of competition. And so again, when you ask about site selection, it's really important, I think, to draw from the experience. We've opened now 12 cafes. What works? What components are consistent between the things that are working? What are things we want to avoid? But I think, is there a need for Summit in this market? We're not as ubiquitous as Starbucks, and we can't just throw our, logo on the outside of a building and know that people will understand it and find it and go there.
Right.
And so it is one of the big questions is like, does this neighborhood need a Summit coffee? We provide a certain experience, a certain product. If that's already being met in a neighborhood, then there's no need for us to go there. So we're not trying to push anybody around, like I said. And I think that, like downtown Asheville, there's a lot of craft coffee shops.
There's a lot of craft coffee shops.
And, and since our brand is built on long-term loyalty, if it's just a tourist, it's like a tourist comes in and there's a lot of craft coffee shops. It's kind of one and the same.
Right.
I
Yeah,
mean, and there's a lot of, as we grow around the Southeast, we're getting benefits of people who are familiar with Summit and have the Summit app. And so they, look and they know that we have stores there. But otherwise, if you, flew in from California and we're staying in Asheville for the weekend and you're like, oh, I'll just go to, we're one of 5 coffee shops in a, 6-block radius. And it, doesn't really matter.
no
People are
brand.
looking for
Yeah,
different
they're
things.
just. What about y'all in Greenville? South Carolina?
No.
No.
There's a brand in Greenville, Methodical.
Okay.
They only have 3 retail stores, but they've done a really, really nice job building their brand over the last few years, and very similar to us in terms of they're a roaster, they're a craft coffee company. They care a lot about the experience, and I know the owners, and I think there might be a time for us to find a pocket in Greenville, but I've sort of stayed away from it just because of Methodical for the most part.
Yeah. Okay. It's just that's a cool town.
Yeah, my parents live right outside Greenville, so I've spent a lot of time there, and I think probably at some point there, we will fill in the gaps between these core markets we're building in. We have the Charlotte, Lake Norman area where we are, the Asheville area, Atlanta, and Charleston. Those are our 4 primary markets, and so if you look at the Southeast, we'll probably start filling in the gaps a little bit. But
okay. What do you spend most of your time on?
It's a great question. We are in a stable, and it's changed a lot over the last couple of years. We now have a 14-person leadership team, corporate staff that sort of oversees the ongoing business of Summit beyond the cafes. From cafe operations to design and site selection to marketing to product innovation. And so not much is needed from me on a day-to-day basis, which is, where I was always hoping the Summit could get to. And theoretically what the CEO should be doing is figuring out where you're going. This past year was like a good 12-month exercise. At the end of 2022, I authored a document. It was our 2024 vision. It was our first real attempt to figure out where we wanted to be 12 to 24 months in advance. We'd always done like a 5-year plan, but then, with the pandemic and everything, things shift so much that it felt like that was a little bit too far out in front of us to accurately predict where we were going. So I sort of, with good reason and foresight as to what just things were already in the pipeline, I crafted where I wanted to be at the start of 2024, and then spent the last year sort of allocating resources and providing employee development and hiring people and moving things around to help us get to where we are today. And now sort of pushing that exercise forward for 2025 and 2026. So I like to say, like, I'm sort of scouting ahead of where we're going, and then working with, we have a chief strategy officer who I work hand in hand with every day to figure out how we're getting the company of today ready to be the company we know that it will be 12 and 18 months from now. And again, I think one of the most important things we can do is figure out what opportunities we are going to turn down, how we're going to allocate our resources, how we're not going to allocate our resources. And so I spend a lot of time learning. I do a lot of research. I do a lot of reading, a lot of listening.
What do you read and what do you listen to?
I read a lot of magazines. I read a lot of business books too. I went through a long phase after graduating from Davidson with an English degree where I was sort of didn't want to read books for a while, but I just finished an awesome book from the CEO of Brooks Running, who is a Berkshire Hathaway spinoff company, and learned, I really find motivation from that intersection of like passion brands, but also really well-run companies.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of interviews, a lot of Harvard Business Review stuff. I actually listen to a lot of sports, and as what I like to do is get ideas from outside of my core industry. Like, I don't spend much time studying coffee.
Yeah.
I might pay attention to the coffee industry because I want to know what's happening, but I don't think that's where innovation for me is going to come from.
Yeah.
So whether it's fashion or other food and beverage companies or craft beer, like we talked about, or the wine industry, whatever it may be, I want to learn about other people who are, podcasts like yours, people who are excelling in some way.
Yep.
And I think the thing that motivates me the most is, and where I spend probably the most mental energy, is helping our team succeed in a way that feels fulfilling too. I'm really 2023 is the first year that I've been running Summit where we've had no turnover at the leadership level. So
Congrats.
our
Yeah.
team has just grown and stuck together. Yeah, knock on some serious wood. I guess we have 10 days left. We have 10 days left in 2023. But I really, again, not to sound like a cliche, but this creating moments of joy. Like, I think it starts with also creating that in our workplace culture because, we talk about the number of people who drink Summit in a day. Like right now, we're probably at between our cafes and home coffee customers, and we're somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 people on a weekday that are drinking Summit coffee. And how are we interacting with and serving those customers? I interact with very few of those customers.
Yeah.
But our team does.
Yeah.
And so if they get it, if they're bought into what we're doing, if they know both like drinking the Kool-Aid culturally, but like also strategically understanding what we're trying to accomplish, then that's going to allow us to stay on the right path and create really memorable, campaigns and products. And if people are happy at work and doing good work, that feels like when I feel the most fulfilled at what I'm doing.
Have you ever read a book called Different?
Mm-mm.
It's by Youngmi Moon, marketing professor at Harvard. I read it like a decade ago,
Okay.
and it really stuck. She talked about how brands tend to, they look at what they're doing and they follow their competition, and then and she had this. I don't remember if it was like Volvo and Volkswagen, but let's just say two car brands,
Sure.
right? And the Volvo customers would tell, like when they bought a Volkswagen, hey, well, I like the Volkswagen, but my Volvo did this, and this. And so then Volvo starts adding that. And then the same. And then these things are like, you look at so many cars, they're so similar, right?
Yep.
Like look at pickup trucks, like the Ram and they're all so similar.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks about, then you have a company like Mini who comes out with a Cooper that's just, what one of the things you said earlier is that says no to lots of things and says, look, like we know who our audience is.
Yep.
We know there is an audience for this. We're going to build for that audience. We're going to ignore our competition. This is who we want to serve. We know exactly who we are. We're going to stay in our lane, and we're going to build this tribe of passionate, enthusiastic, loyal customers who are going to always want to be part of that tribe. And that's just one of the many examples she goes through of different brands that build that following. And that following is just a really strong, powerful following. And they're not having to try to keep up with what all of their competitors are doing all the time because they really don't have one, because they know who they are and who they want to serve. And they're fine if they don't want to serve the person that needs the, handcrafted, I want the 8-minute wait because that's what I need. And then they're not as worried about the person that just wants to push button and quit whatever. And like you find like, this is our perfect customer. This is who. Anyway, great book if you're into reading.
Yeah,
that one really stuck with me.
And that sounds similar. And we're in a fortunate place now where we've reached scale where we have a proven business concept, and we're going through the exact same exercises. Like we don't need to reinvent who our target customer is. We know in different pockets who our brand resonates with, what they like about our brand, why they like our brand. What we need to do is figure out how to get coffee in their hands better, more easily. And that's where it's like site selection is helpful. It's like, okay, we actually know the demographics, the type of neighborhoods, the type of people who are going to like going to a Summit Coffee Cafe. Now let's figure out where those neighborhoods exist that don't have something like a Summit, and let's put a Summit there.
Right.
Instead of just like, let's get this attractive real estate project and we'll try to convince the people in this neighborhood who've never heard of Summit and aren't in our core demographic to really like Summit.
Yeah.
It's much harder to do.
Yep.
And I think, we recognize a lot of people drink coffee, and you can't, and the coffee shop is cool. We have people that are, I've been bringing my kids there since they were newborns, and we have 90-year-olds who come in, which is great, but you can't market equally to all those people, right? I mean, it's like you have to know who are the real engines of your brand and just serve those people. And so we are actually, at the start of the new year, are undertaking our biggest customer survey, customer engagement project we've ever done. Is like, let's take our 4,000 daily Summit customers and try to understand them 10 times better than we understand them now. Why did they choose Summit? Where else are they drinking coffee? Do they go to Starbucks and why? What are the differentiators, et cetera? And like, let's just really lean into these people and build our business on that.
That's it, man. That's it. I love the moments of joy. There's another book that really stuck with me called Drive by Daniel Pink, and he talks about what really motivates people. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah.
It's autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And the purpose of creating moments of joy is a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah.
Ironically, Marwan at Chai Pani, they talk about mind-blowing moments.
Yeah.
Like they always want to create these mind-blowing moments where the customer's like, whoa, like that's cool, because people that have a servant's heart, they want to create those types of moments. And it gives them this sense of purpose that's bigger than just, making money selling coffee.
And it's hard to do, and we're still a small business, and so you have to be able to allocate your resources appropriately, right? It's like you have to make decisions at a certain point where it's like you're going to be relentlessly focused on site selection and getting to know your customers, so you're giving them the product and the experience that's going to all serve in support of creating moments of joy, right? And so you have to sacrifice and give up on some things. Like, we're not going to play in this territory. We're not going to go down the line with this product innovation because, you can't do everything. And we're not going to be great at it all the time. We're definitely not great at it in a lot of ways now.
Yeah.
I think it's built on the idea that we feel most fulfilled and know that our customers feel most connected to our brand when we are operating in that space, when we're able to create moments of joy, whether it's in our cafe, whether it's in a brand activation experience, even on social media, our traction on posts that are humorous and funny or provide connectivity, those are the ones that people resonate with, right? And so, running that filter through all aspects of your company. And so, again, it was more of an uncovering rather than like we're authoring the idea that we're going to create moments of joy. It's like, this is what we're already doing when we're doing it at our best. And it's something that everybody can rally behind that works for us. And it's also a pretty good, I keep using the word filter, but in terms of who wants to work in your cafes, if your company's mission is to create moments of joy, it's not to sell the best cup of coffee. There are certain people that are going to want to work for a cafe that, are pretty relentlessly pursuing supreme excellence in the coffee experience.
Yeah.
Like the Michelin star restaurant version of coffee. And that's totally cool.
Yeah.
But if we're pretty clear that that's not what we're doing, like we want to have awesome coffee, but it's really about the joy, then if you're not a person who's interested in creating moments of joy, then you're probably not going to be a good cultural fit for us.
Yep. Well, the cultural fit's so huge. I mean, turnover is expensive. Getting the right people on there, congrats on, and hopefully you get through the next 10 days with that team. I mean, that's massive. I mean, that just the ability to continue to fluidly grow the business and scale the business when you've got the same people on and that you're not dealing with all that is massive. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. And it's been, figuring out what that looks like. And for the different workforce, one big shift we made this year is we went to a 4-day work week on the corporate level, which we've been hesitant to do for a long time for fear of, loss of productivity. But we worked so hard in our time that we experimented with it over the summer, and just the general happiness, but really even like the quality of the engagement Monday through Thursday everyone was sharper. Everyone was, and then it gives people time on Friday and Saturday and Sunday to pursue what they want to do, to find whether that's, they want to travel more, whether they want to rest, whether, everyone wants to do something different, but it's been really good for us.
There's a restaurant group in Greenville, Table 301, and we did a series with their executives for the podcast, and they I thought this was so fascinating. Every 5 years, if you're on the management team, they actually require you to take a month off.
Yeah.
You cannot check email. You cannot come into any of the restaurants.
Sabbatical of sorts.
It's a 5-year mandatory paid sabbatical.
Yeah.
And talking to some of the people that have been through that, I actually had a couple on that had just gotten through their second one. They've been there long enough. They started doing it 6 years ago. Just freaking amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, just, and that leadership team, like they've got people that have been there for 20, 25 years that flat out could have gone off and started their own thing, but they just love that team and that cohesiveness and that culture. And it was a really good example of somebody that's just got that really, really dialed in and investing into things like what you're doing there.
Yeah. That's
That
really
means that means so much to the people that are on that team.
Yeah, and I think I have the fortune to have a very long-term view of what I want Summit to be.
Well, that was my next question. Is like, what is your summit? Where you're always inching up the the mountain.
I'm building this business to run, not to sell, to flip it, to make a profit of a certain amount. And so that makes it easier to make certain decisions that, have a long-term perspective. There were years when I ran Summit where we, like every Monday when it was time to run payroll, we were like, how does it look this week? I've been there for years. We spent years in that space.
Yeah.
And I don't love it. And then you make certain decisions where you're like, well, we can't afford to do this. We need to cut back on this because we need to make sure we make payroll. And I think that's foundational to how we've decided to run the companies, because like that is my experience with the same company that we're running now. And so now that we've grown enough to where we are predictably profitable and growing, it allows you to invest more in the people, the customer experience, some of these near-term ROI things that, if you have okay, I'm going to be running this business 24 months from now, how is decision impact that?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's sort of an abstract answer to your question. I think fundamentally we want to continue to expand in our core markets. Strava, which is the fitness company that started with cyclists, their marketing philosophy from the jump was inch wide, mile deep. It's like, don't try to go so far that you're not really penetrating all the customers that you're serving. And so that's been our local market strategy, is like, how do we continue to serve more and serve better the customers where we are?
Yeah.
There's so much opportunity where we are. We don't need to be a national coffee brand. Maybe there'll be opportunities that come up. Maybe something will happen, but, we'll continue to play where we're playing and choose our spots and, say no to a lot more things than we say yes to.
Do you know what the largest American-owned beer brewery is?
Is it Yuengling?
It is.
Yeah.
Pottsville, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And they've
East
said no
Coast.
to so much expansion.
They're only on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to that guy. It's family owned. Like, did you hear the episode with Guy Raz?
Yeah.
It's like one of my favorite episodes he ever did, because he's like fourth generation or whatever he is, third or fourth, and his kids are going to get involved.
Yeah, they're only in 17 states or something like that.
Yeah, they're it's like just the East Coast. Like, and Guy Raz is like, do you realize you could sell this for like billions of dollars? He's like, okay, well,
Cool.
what would I do? Then what would I do? I mean, he's, every day, I mean, I have enough money. I'm fine there. I get up and I drive. It's almost like I drive 2 miles there, and I love this, and my kids are getting involved with this, and we are only on the East Coast still. We have so much we can continue to do, but right now we're not even in all the markets we want to be on the East Coast. So why would we bother going out to Denver or wherever else?
It can be a distraction, right? I mean,
well, that's your inch, you can go an inch wide and a mile deep, which they've done, or you can go, an inch deep and a mile wide. And I mean, that can get tough.
Yeah,
I actually just had my buddy who's a founder of Pinhook Bourbon.
Yeah.
Was on the podcast. We did a Zoom a week ago, and they went to too many states and realized we're spreading ourselves. Let's focus on key states where we know we have a good presence, and let's just crush it there. And so they're kind of retracting and getting re-engaged on just these 5, 6, 7 states instead of 23 states, and just kind of being everywhere. And
I think for a brand like Summit, where we value the hospitality and the idea of intimacy in the cafe, that it matters that people know what Summit is, and you can also have hands on the experience. And, for as small as we are, we've been tempted. We almost opened a series of cafes in Denver, Colorado, because we're it's a great brand fit, and people, and it probably would have been fine, but definitely would have distracted us from, we would have been on planes all the time, trying to build a brand in a market where you have no brand affinity at all.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's, I think I don't have ambitions to sell Summit for billions of dollars and to grow it to that point. I like what I do. I can't imagine enjoying a job more than I enjoy the job that I have. I have 2 young kids. I don't want to retire. Like I want to work. I like working and I like what I do. And so, and want to make sure the people that I work with on a daily basis also like what they do. Cause that's part of you spend so much time working, right? I mean, I spend half of my waking hours working. And, for someone who values like joy in my own life, I have the privilege of getting to curate what that looks like in my company. And so surround yourself with people who are happy and make decisions that keep that moving forward.
I'm convinced if you can build a company, if you have the skill set to build a company that somebody wants to pay tens of millions or hundreds of millions of billions, you're going to start doing something else fairly quickly,
Right.
probably, because if you have that skill set, it
Yeah.
means you like to be engaged, you
Right.
like to be working on things, you like to be solving problems, you like to work with people that you admire and respect, you like to help people grow. So it's an interesting thing, like and I think more and more people realize that these days. I mean, there's lots of people that have made tons of money that are miserable
Totally.
because that's not what that's the idea that you sell and then you play golf and sit on the beach, like that just doesn't. I remember Yvon Chouinard,
Yeah.
from Patagonia.
Yeah.
He talked about that. I remember hearing him one time. It may have been with Guy Raz, but he was like, well, the playbook thing is I take my company public, sell the stock to a bunch of suckers, and then I retire and I play golf. He's like, that may be what the playbook says, but I am never doing that,
Yeah.
man. Like I got my I'm and he's just taken a very, very
Yes.
different path and like a very admirable path and chose his own path. And I think when I was sitting here looking at your logo earlier, I was thinking about Patagonia.
Yeah,
and,
definitely. And they're a brand that we've studied a lot. I mean, he
Yeah.
wrote a great book, Let My People Go Surfing.
Yep, I've got that.
Talks a lot about company culture and at the foundation of what they do. I mean, I think also one of the opportunities that continued growth affords us is the impact that you can make gets more sincere. And on a community level, we just undertook a big project in Davidson. There's the Ada Jenkins Center, which is a community center in Lake Norman that serves underprivileged youth.
Yeah.
Basically gives them access to after school resources, summer resources, the things that it's the only place in Lake Norman that has it. They had a condemned gym. I ran into their executive director a year and a half ago. The conversation came up, and we spearheaded a project to rebuild their gym for the kids and then we funded a summer camp so that the kids could have access to it all year round. Being able to be integrated into your community and have, we didn't pay for it all ourselves. We have a network of people who can chip in, but like that's the impact you can make on a bigger level too, that also creates meaning in what we're doing too. We sell coffee, absolutely, and need to sell coffee for this to continue to go, but that is not sort of the purpose of what we're doing.
Yeah, love it. Let's I want to, I know you're a busy guy. I want to wrap this up and I'll let you go, but let's since we're both from Davidson and we know that Liz and Annie are going to see this episode. Just talk a little bit about what from your Davidson experience, and you're an English major at Davidson. I was a history major at Davidson, and here we are, entrepreneurs running small businesses. Like, what do you think you got from the Davidson experience that has translated over into your success in business?
The thing that I keep going back to is learning how to ask good questions. Yeah. I think that is applicable to any person in any job. I think if, and even relationally, if you're, young and trying to make friendships, or it's like the ability to ask good questions, because that requires good listening. It requires critical thinking, and it requires sort of a genuine curiosity to know more. Yeah. If you can figure out how to ask good questions, it'll take you a long way in life. And I think Davidson, and being a creative writing focused, you're constantly wondering how somebody formed a thought or why they wrote this or what the interpretation of this could be. And I think back to my most impactful classes at Davidson or experiences with professors or students, and sort of that is a through line that existed with all of it.
Yep. Awesome. I would agree completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? Did we miss anything? Is there something else we should be talking about?
I don't think so.
You're able to run?
Yeah, I'm running. I'm
Okay.
running again.
You're wearing are you wearing Nikes?
I do wear Nikes. They fit my feet really well.
Yeah.
Not for any really good reasons other than I go through a lot of running shoes. I run. I'm lower now, trying to ease back in after. But during the pandemic, I was running 70 miles a week.
Okay.
Which is a lot of time on foot.
Marathons, ultra marathons,
Ultra
stuff like that?
marathons.
Yeah.
I went through a marathon phase. I've done 20 marathons.
Okay.
And then switched to ultra marathoning. Again, it was a big difference for me was with marathoning, it became sort of, there was a competitive instinct I was trying to tap into consistently. And it was like, how fast can you go? Whereas ultra marathoning to me is more about an individual pursuit of like, how far can I go? How can I challenge myself? And that to me is, at least at this phase of my life, maybe it's because I'm not as fast as I used to be, but that to me is more fun. Is like, can I run 50 miles? Can I, run across the Grand Canyon? These things that I've done, it's more, and I think it's more, I like being able to meet up with a friend on Fridays and say, let's, go into the woods and run for a couple hours and talk. And
have you read Born to Run?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you why you're not running around barefoot.
Yeah, no, and I've started playing, I've started an underground Friday morning basketball group up in Davidson too. So I still get a lot of physical activity, but it's met with social and it's good.
Yeah. Do you, have you done there's one called the Great Western 100. Have you done 100?
No, the Western States 100. I've not
Western
done
State
100.
100, yeah.
I've done 350s.
Okay.
It's funny to do 50, but I look at the 100 milers. I'm like, that's crazy. But I mean, at some point perhaps, but I've never once finished a 50-mile race and been like, you know what? I really could do 50 more. I've been like, this sucks.
Well, 50 sounds pretty freaking crazy to me.
Yeah.
Do you follow David Goggins?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's a lot, but he every now and then, like if I'm like, I kind of probably need a little like I know I need a kick in the ass. I just will watch like a couple of his Instagram posts.
That's right.
All right, man.
That's
right,
right.
cool.
I can do this. Yeah.
I can't do that, but I can do what I need to do right now. That guy, he'll get it. He'll get you. Dude, man, this is awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the time to do this. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for coming into this awesome studio.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And doing this. And I'm actually going to see. I need another cup.
Yep.
So I'm going over to your shop over here.
Yeah, thanks for the brand shout out.
Absolutely. So well, that's it, man. We'll have this up. I don't know. I've got 3 or 4 in line. We'll have it up in a week or so. And,
awesome.
I will stay in touch with you because I do come up there often.
Let's grab coffee.
I love being up there at the Hurt Hub. I love being, in that environment. Great environment. Love having your coffee there. I drink a lot of it every time I'm there. So
yeah.
But thanks, Brian. Appreciate
it. Thanks for having me on.
All right.